Hey guys, this is Eric Vasquez here from Design Cuts, and today we've got a brand new tutorial for you where I'm going to be showing you guys how to create a really fun zombie-themed party invitation. Now we're going to be using the hugely versatile vector bundle, which is the current bundle featuring thousands of professional quality vectors, jam-packed with incredible brushes, retro graphics, logo creation kits, and so much more. Now this tutorial uses freebies from some of the featured artists in this bundle. We're going to be focusing on using elements from Katie Clemens, Pick by Kate, Downloads for Designers, as well as Circworks Art Lab. Alright, and if you're all ready to get started, then let's fire up Photoshop and begin. The first thing we're going to do here is create a new document, and we need to check off a few things. The first thing I'm going to do here is just name my document. So I'm just going to call this Zombie Party Invitation Design. And then let's go ahead and make sure that we are using inches instead of pixels. And I'm going to make it 4 inches wide by 6 inches tall. Change the resolution to 300. And normally if we were doing a printed party invite, we would leave it on CMYK. But for now, I'm going to change it to RGB because, nowadays people send a lot of evites and things like that as well. So either one of those is fine. But for now, we're just going to go with RGB and then click Create. Now right away, after you create your new document, you'll notice over here in your layers palette, you just have a single background layer. So let's go ahead and double click on the layer, and we're just going to rename it BG, press enter or return on the keyboard, and that's going to unlock the layer. So previously there was a small lock icon here that we just wanted to get rid of, and we have now successfully done that. Now the next thing we're going to do is come down here to the bottom of the layers palette and click on the adjustment layer icon and choose solid color. Now what this is going to do is just create a solid fill color on our whole background so that we can give our background a nice purple color. So for that, let's go ahead and use the hex value 63207C. Alright, and we're going to be using this color quite a bit throughout this tutorial. Alright, so go ahead and hit return, and now what we are going to do is hold the shift key, click on the BG layer, and now click on this small folder icon down here at the bottom of the layers palette to create a new group. Or you can use the keyboard shortcut Command-Control+G. Now all you have to do is double click on the group 1 text, and I'm just going to rename this folder background. Okay, so very simple. We're just going to do that as we go. We're going to keep things nice and organized, contained inside of group folders, which is just really good practice, as you create files that have more and more layers in them. Okay, so now that we have our background set up, we can begin bringing in some of our freebies for the tutorial. To do that, we're going to start by going to the File menu and choosing Place Embedded. And what we're going to do now is navigate to the Ink Pattern 15 texture from Pick by Kate. And you'll notice right away that there are a few different versions of the EPS files for this tutorial. Now, I'm just going to use CC because that is the version of Adobe Suite that I'm using. But if you have a previous version, CS6, 5, 4, or anything older than that, you'll want to use one of these other files depending on the compatibility. Okay, but once you navigate to the correct EPS file, go ahead and click on Place in the bottom right, and that's going to bring your file in. Now, before we do anything, we're seeing this dialog box here asking us to rasterize the EPS format. And before we click OK, we just want to make sure to change the mode from CMYK color to RGB, and then go ahead and click OK. Now you will see your ink pattern here, and what we need to do before we press return to apply the changes is just scale this up so that it fills the height of our canvas. So all we're going to do is move our cursor over any of these 4 corners and drag outwards while holding the Alt, Option, and Shift keys together. And what that's going to do is scale it up proportionally from the center. Alright, so we're going to make it about that size just so it fills everything up, and then maybe hold the Shift key and just slide it over to the right a bit as well. Okay, and now once you're happy with the size and placement, go ahead and hit return on the keyboard to apply the changes. Now once we have this in place where we want it, we're going to lower the opacity. So we're going to come over here to the side where our layers palette is, and you'll see right here where it says opacity, you can simply drag this down to 20%, or you could press the number 2 on the keyboard, or you can click this little arrow and drag the slider here. So there's a couple of different ways that you can just quickly and easily change the opacity and lower that to about 20%. Now going to File and choosing Place Embedded is a great and easy way to bring in files that are kind of already prepped to bring directly into Photoshop. But for the next few textures, we're actually going to open them up directly in Adobe Illustrator. All right, so we're going to go to our Finder and we're going to navigate to the Downloads for Designers marble texture. So that's the Messy Marbling Volume 1 texture. And again, you'll notice inside this folder here that there are various different versions of EPS files saved. So open up the correct file that matches up with the version of Illustrator that you are using on your computer. Okay, so once you open this up, you'll see here that there's some extra elements in here, all right? But the only one that we're concerned with is this texture. So what we want to do first is come over to our layers in Illustrator, and you'll notice that there's two layers here, both with locks next to them. Then I'm going to click this lock icon to unlock it. And now all I need to do is click on this texture, press Command-C to copy it, and then press Command and the Tab key until you come back over to Photoshop, and then press Command-Control+V to paste it. Now we want to paste this as a smart object, not pixels, and then go ahead and click OK. Okay, so before we place this, go ahead and hold down the Control key and click on the texture, and now scroll down and choose Rotate 90 degrees clockwise because we want it to be vertical instead of horizontal. And now once again, hold Alt, Option, and Shift and drag outwards from any of the four corners of the bounding box to scale this up until it fills your entire canvas, and then go ahead and press Return. Now let me just come back over to Illustrator really quickly, because again, I want to double click and copy the name of this layer. So I'm going to double click inside the layer here, press Command-C to copy it, come back to Photoshop, and double click this Vector Smart Object text, and then just go ahead and paste in the name DFD Messy Marbling 2. Okay, very easy. Now what we're going to do is double click the layer to add a layer style, check off the color overlay option, and for the fill color here, let's go ahead and type in the purple value that we used before, which is 63207C. So if you remember, I said we're going to be using that quite a bit, so that will just match our background color. Okay, now come back to the freebies folder for the tutorial, and this time let's go ahead and open up the Downloads for Designers Grunge and Dirt Vector Pack Volume 1, 3, and then whichever version of Illustrator you are using. And this one's going to be set up in a very similar way where it kind of has this template around it. Okay, so again, come up to the layers, unlock it, click on the texture and press Command-C to copy it, Command and Tab until you're back over to Photoshop, and then Command-V to paste it as a smart object. This time before we place it, let's go ahead and click on it while we hold the Control key and choose Rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise. And once again, hold Alt, Option, and Shift and scale this up until it fills your entire canvas, and then go ahead and press Return. Now just like we did before, when we were naming our files, I'm going to come back to Illustrator, double click to select the layer name and press Command-C to copy it, come back to Photoshop, double click on the layer and press Command-V to paste the name. Now let's go ahead and double click on that layer to bring up the layer styles, and this time we'll check off color overlay and we're going to fill it with a darker shade of purple. So let's enter the hex value down here of 340D43. Go ahead and press Return or click OK 2 times to apply the changes. And now all we need to do is select the top texture here, hold the Shift key, and select the Ink Pattern 15 layer, and then press Command-Control+G to put them into a group folder. Double click the Group 1 text and just change the name of the folder to Textures. Okay, so we've got a nice little texture folder set up here. And then all I'm going to do is just click on this arrow to reveal the contents here. And let's go ahead and select the grunge texture and just move it down one spot so that it's below the messy marble texture. Okay, and that's just going to make it not quite as overpowering because, you know, if we don't have that, we're seeing a lot more of the grunge. But now we have that marble texture on top that's covering up some of those, you know, grunge and dirt bits that we have there. Okay, so far, so good. Now let's go back to our freebies folder for the tutorial. And we're now going to bring in something from CircWorks Art Lab. Okay, and what I did here was use the zombie avatar creator, and I just made this custom zombie for the tutorial. All right, now the full bundle has tons of customizable parts where you guys can create all different kinds of really cool zombies, but this is the one that I created for you guys to use now. All right, so all I'm doing is clicking and dragging this over here, or what I can do instead is come up to File, choose Place Embedded, and then just navigate to the zombie in the freebies folder for the tutorial. Okay, and you can just choose Place, and it'll bring it directly in your file at the size that we need. All right, so maybe I'm just going to move it up a couple of clicks by holding the Shift key and tapping the up arrow a few times. And then I'm going to double click on the layer to add a layer style. But this time, instead of doing a color overlay, we're going to check off the stroke option. Now for the size, I'm going to set it to be 18 pixels. Make sure that the position is set to outside. And then for the color, we are going to once again use that same purple hex value, 63207C. Go ahead and hit return twice to apply the changes. And it may be a little bit hard to tell right now, but there is a thick purple stroke going all the way around the head of our creepy and fun looking zombie. Okay, so with your zombie selected, press Command-Control+G to put it into a group folder. Double click the group 1 text and just rename this folder zombie. Okay, just to keep things nice and neat and organized. Now, the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and create a new layer. So to do that, we can either come down here to the bottom of the layers palette and click on the create a new layer icon, or you can use the keyboard shortcut Command-Control+Alt-Option+Shift plus the letter N on the keyboard. And that's also going to create a new layer. Now we want to make sure that this layer is below our zombie layer, so we can either click and drag it or use the keyboard shortcut Command, Control, and the left bracket to move that layer down one spot in the layers palette. Now from here, what we're going to do is press the letter T on the keyboard to get our type tool. And now let's just go ahead and click up top here. Now what I'm going to do is just type out the word zombie and press Command Control A to select all of my text. Okay, now you can do this a couple of different ways. You'll notice that up top here you've got some font options, and you also have those available in the Properties panel. But for now, I'm going to open up the Character panel from the window menu just so I can show you guys the settings to use. Now for the font here, I'm going to be using a font called Curse of the Zombie, which is a totally free font that you guys can download from dafont.com. Now you'll have to find the link for that in the written portion of this tutorial, because it's not part of the freebies that we can give away. I know that there's been some confusion in the past as to fonts and where to find them because they're not always included. And that's my fault because we can't put these in there to give away. But that being said, you guys can download them totally for free from dafont.com. So again, check out the written portion of the tutorial for those links. Now, using the Curse of the Zombie font, I'm just simply typing out the word zombie in all caps, and I want to make it about 74 points in size. And then for the color, you can either click on the color box here in the Properties panel, or once again up top in this toolbar, and we're going to change the hex value for this to FBF5B0, which is this kind of off-white cream color. All right, go ahead and click OK to apply that change. And now let's go ahead and maybe just move our zombie down a little bit. So I'm going to select the zombie folder, hold the Shift key, and just tap this down a few times so that it's overlapping the zombie text a little bit without covering it up too much. Okay, maybe even come up a little bit more. Something like that looks pretty good. Okay, now let's go ahead and create another new layer. Command, Control, Alt, Option, Shift, and the letter N on the keyboard. Move this down one spot by pressing Command, Control in the left bracket, and then grab your text tool once again. And go ahead and click to the left of the zombie here. Now this time we're going to type out the word out, just O-U-T, just like that. And I'm going to click and drag around the text to highlight it. Now this time we're going to be using another free typeface from dafont.com. This one is called Feast of Flesh. Okay, and again, this one can also be downloaded for free from dafont.com. And you'll notice that it has two styles. It has an italic and a regular. So for this, let's go ahead and choose the italic style, which you can also see here just to the right of our font. And let's go ahead and also change the size of this to be about 35.66 points. Something like that looks pretty good. And for this, we're just going to place it somewhere around here, kind of to the left of the zombie's hat. All right, and that looks pretty good. Now I'll press Command-J to duplicate the layer, Command and the left bracket to move it down one spot, and then press Command-T to do a free transform, click and hold the Shift key, and then drag this over to the right side like that. Now press Return to apply the changes, T to get your type tool, and then click inside and change the text to read break in all caps. Okay, something like that. And now just to make a little bit of space here, let's go ahead and make our zombie just a little bit smaller. So I'm going to select the zombie folder, press Command-T, and then hold Alt, Option, and Shift and just drag in a little bit from any of the four corners of the bounding box to make a little bit more room for our text. Okay, so we now have our zombie text, the out layer, and the break layer. Okay, so you should have 3 text layers here. What we want to do is just make sure that we get our text in the right place. So I'm just going to tap the zombie to the left a little bit so that I can read all of that break text over here, okay? Now what I'm going to do is select the out text layer, hold Shift and select the break layer, and then press Command G on the keyboard to put them into a group folder. Double click the group 1 text and change this to the number 1. Press Command J to duplicate the folder, Command in the left bracket to move it down 1 spot, and then double click the 1 copy text and change this to the number 2. Now once you press return and apply those changes, what we're going to do is move this down and to the right maybe 6 to 8 times or 6 to 10 times using our down and right arrows. So go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, and to the right maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more times. Okay, and now press Command J once again, then Command in the left bracket to make a copy of folder 2. Double click the 2 copy text, call this one 3, press return, and then move it down again 6 to 10 times and to the right 6 to 10 times. So we now have 3 folders and 3 copies of each of our words. So from here what we want to do is double click on the first folder here, folder number 1, to bring up the layer styles. For our folder, check off color overlay, and now we're going to change the fill color of this layer to D30935, which is this nice vibrant red color. Go ahead and click OK twice to apply the changes, and now select the number 2 folder and double click on that. Now this time we'll also apply a color overlay, but instead we're going to change the hex value to our purple color that we've been using, which is 63207C. Go ahead and press return twice to apply those changes. Now you'll see that by doing that we've created this nice kind of offset drop shadow effect, okay? But we actually need to move these a little bit closer together now. So I'm going to tap folder 2 up and to the left a little bit. Okay, maybe somewhere about there, and then select folder 3 and do the same so that it's offset but just not quite as much. I think we just went a little bit too far. Okay, but we want it to be maybe somewhere around here. Looks pretty good. And then all we're going to do is select folder 3, hold Shift and click on folder 1, and press Command Control plus G to put them all into one group folder that we're just going to rename Outbreak. Okay, so it says Zombie and Outbreak just below. Now the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and create another new layer. This time I'm just going to click the new layer icon in the layers palette, press T on the keyboard to get my type tool, click, and this time let's go ahead and type out the words quarantine instructions. All right, and then press Command A to select all, come over to your character panel and change the font once again to Feast of Flesh, but this time let's use the regular style instead of italic. Okay, the color is the color that we want, so we want that kind of cream color that we used before, but we're going to change the size to 22.3 points. Now I'm just going to grab my move tool over here and roughly position this in the center. Now press Command J to create a copy of that folder, Command in the left bracket to move it down, and then you can just hold the Shift key and tap down a few times to give it a little bit of space. Press T to get your type tool, and then click inside 3 times to highlight the text. Now let's come back to our character panel, and we're going to now use our 3rd free font from defont.com called Handbook. Okay, this is another free one that you guys can download, and you'll find the link for that in the written portion of the tutorial. And now using this font, we're going to type out an address and some instructions. So we're going to type out on February 25th, and for the TH I'm using lowercase letters. Everything else is going to be caps. Proceed to the, then go ahead and press the return key to come to a second line and type out the words Safe House located at 1302 Zombie Drive, and now press return a 3rd time and type out Mesa, M-E-S-A, A-Z 79402. Now all you have to do is make a few adjustments here because as you can see we can't really see our 3 lines of text. So I'm going to click inside, press Command A, and we need to adjust the line spacing here. So what we want to do is just double check a few things to make sure that we can see all of our text. Okay, and we're also going to change the size from 22.3 to about 18.04 for the size. Now, just next to the size, you'll notice that you have this leading option, okay, which is going to dictate the amount of space in between each of these lines of text. Okay, so I'm going to set that maybe to around 18.21 or so. Let's go ahead and just remove that. Okay, so you should now have your text down here on the bottom. So what we're going to do next is select the quarantine instructions, hold Shift and select the text below, press Command G, put it into a group folder and rename it Quarantine Instructions, and then press Command in the left bracket 2 times to move it down. Now select the zombie text layer, hold Shift and select the Quarantine Instructions group folder. I just need to add the S there. So you have all 3 selected, and then press Command G once again to put it into a new folder. Double click the group 1 text and rename this folder Text Layers. So we've got all of our text layers here in this one folder. Come back up to the File menu and choose Place Embedded so that we can import our next freebie, which is going to be one of the doodle dividers from Katie Clemens. All right, the first one we're going to bring in is number 11, the PNG file. So choose Place. And let's just go ahead and move this up a little bit so that it's kind of underlining the words outbreak. Go ahead and press Return on the keyboard and then double click the layer to bring up the layer styles and check off color overlay. Now I'm just going to move this panel to the left, or to the right rather, so that I can see my out text here. And now I'm going to click on the color, and instead of manually typing in the hex value, if I move my cursor anywhere outside of this panel, you'll see that it becomes the eyedropper tool. So now all I have to do is sample a little bit of that red color, and I'll have the exact same hex value here. So once you've done that, go ahead and click OK twice to apply the changes, and now press Command J and Command and the left bracket to move it down 1 spot, and I'll hold the Shift key and the down arrow to move this copy down. All right, and we're going to place this one maybe somewhere around here towards the bottom of the chin and the goatee of our zombie, so that we now have 2 copies of our doodle dividers. Now let's go ahead and import our other divider. So come back up to File, choose Place Embedded, and this time go ahead and grab Katie Clemens Doodle Dividers 70.png and choose Place. Now for this one, I'm going to click and hold the Shift key and move it up so that it overlaps some of our zombie text up here. Okay, and I'm going to hold the Alt option and Shift keys and then just drag in a little bit to scale it down slightly, and then go ahead and press Return. Now, as I said, we want to make sure that this kind of overlaps the zombie text, but we actually want this divider to kind of be knocked out. So I'll show you guys how to do that in just a second, but first let's just add some color to our divider. Now I can do this a few ways, but the easiest and fastest way, because I know that I want it to be the same red as our previous 2 dividers, is to come over here to the Layers palette, and you'll notice this little FX icon. So all I want to do is hold the Alt Option key, click on the FX icon, and then just drag and drop it onto the other layer that you want to apply that to, and you'll see that we now have that same red color. Let's go ahead and open this Text Layers folder, scroll down a bit, let me just close the properties to make some room, and what I'm going to do is hold the Control key, or hold the Command key, and now click on the layer thumbnail icon of the zombie text layer, which is just this uppercase T. And you'll notice that when I do that, it's activated a selection around the text. So while that selection is still active, come up to the Select menu and choose Modify, Expand, and let's enter a value of 18 pixels. Okay, and now from here, what I'm going to do is click on the top doodle, divider doodle, hold the Shift key and select the third one, press Command G to put them into a group folder, double click the group 1 name to rename this layer Dividers. I'm going to come back to the Select menu and choose Inverse, or you can use the keyboard shortcut Command Control plus Shift plus I to invert the selection. And now, while we have our dividers group folder still selected, come down to the bottom of the Layers palette and choose the Add Layer Mask icon. Okay, and what that's going to do is create a mask based on our inverted selection. So now if I open up the dividers folder, I can select that top divider and I can move it around without really affecting the mask that is applied to the entire folder. So I can resize this divider and it's not going to mess up the layer mask itself, okay? So that way it'll just give us a nice bit of space between the divider and the text. And when you're happy with the size and positioning, go ahead and collapse that folder, and you should now have something like this. The next thing we're going to do is come up to the File menu and choose Place Embedded, and we're going to bring in some zombie props, okay? So these are also from CircWorks Art Lab, and these are some of the props that you guys will be able to use in the full bundle to help customize your zombies. The first one I'm concerned with here is going to be the Cleaver PSD. So go ahead and choose Place, and now we're just going to move it over here, and before we place it, hold the Control key and click on the layer and choose Flip Horizontal. And now I'm also going to move my cursor kind of in the bottom right corner just to rotate it a bit. Then hold Alt, Option, and Shift and scale it down a bit as well. And now I can just kind of position it exactly where I want it. Maybe kind of somewhere over here above the quarantine instructions and to the left of the zombie's head. So you end up with something like that, okay? And then I'm just going to use the arrows to kind of nudge it into place there. And now what I want to do is actually mask out some of the divider here. So I'm going to come to the dividers group folder and click on the layer mask. Now press the letter B on the keyboard to get my brush tool. And make sure that you have a hard round brush selected with 100% opacity and flow. And you also want to make sure that you have a solid black foreground color here. So if you have any other color, all you have to do is press D to reset your default colors, and then use the X key to toggle your foreground and background colors until black is the foreground. And all I have to do is come in here and paint just to the sides of the cleaver handle, just to give it a little bit of space like that. All right, and that looks pretty good. Now we'll come back up to the File menu, choose Place Embedded, and this time we're going to import the Fly1 PSD file. Okay, and I can't see it yet because it's behind the zombie head here, so I'm just going to move it over to the side. And maybe let's just rotate it a little bit and scale it down a bit as well and place it somewhere over here, okay? And now let's repeat that to bring in fly number 2. All right, just to add a bit of variation, choose Place, bring this one in your file, and hold Control and click on the layer and choose Flip Horizontal just to flip it the other way. And now hold the Shift and the Alt Option keys and scale it down a bit. Press Return to apply the changes, and then just kind of nudge it into place where you want it. All right, so I'm going to have it somewhere over here, and then press Command J to duplicate that layer, Command T to do a free transform, and now I'm just going to position this fly on the right side of the zombie's head, maybe just rotate it a bit so it doesn't look exactly the same. Okay, and you can make it maybe somewhere around there. Now select the Fly 2 copy layer, hold Shift and select the Cleaver layer so all of these props are selected together. Press Command G to put them into a group folder, and then double click the Group 1 text and just rename this folder Props. Okay, now we're just going to add one more element here from CircWorks Art Lab. So come back up to File, choose Place Embedded, and now we're going to select the Comic Bubble PSD and press Return to place it. And now I'm going to move this over towards the right here. Hold the Control key and click on the bubble and choose Flip Horizontal. We're going to rotate it a bit like we did before, and now scale it down by holding the Shift key and just dragging in from the right corner here. All right, and what I want to do is make sure that this is above my zombie layer so I can see it. So instead of using the keyboard shortcut Command in the left bracket to move the layer down one spot, we're going to use the keyboard shortcut Command in the right bracket to move it up. Okay, so we end up with something like this. I'm just going to rotate it a little bit more, make it a little bit larger, okay? And then I'm going to come into my props folder here and maybe just reposition that second fly just so I can see what's going on here with my comic book bubble. And I like the placement of this fly, but again, I don't want to see those two little red spots behind it, which are part of the dividers. So to get rid of that, I'll come to the dividers folder, press B on the keyboard to get my brush, and then just brush that out with a hard round brush set to black. Okay, now I can take my comic book bubble and add some text to it. So add a new layer, press T on the keyboard to get your type tool, and click inside the comic bubble. And we're going to type out the words "Join us for a," press Command Control plus A to select all, and then come back to your character panel and change the font to Feast of Flesh Regular. All right, just like that. And let's go ahead and use the italic version instead. And we'll change the size from 6.27 to something a little bit larger, maybe 12.4, sounds pretty good. And you can leave the color set to solid black. And now I'm just going to hold the Shift key and tap this over with the arrows to move it into place. Now I'll press Command J and Command in the left bracket to duplicate the layer and move it down a spot. Hold the Shift key and tap the down arrow a few times. Press T to get your type tool. Click inside and change the text to read monster in all caps. And now I'm going to highlight this text, change the color to maybe this red, so I'm just going to use the eyedropper. Click OK. And let's change the size of this text to 16.5, so it's a little bit larger. Okay, and I'm going to click on the Move tool here just to deselect it. And now what I want to do is maybe move this down a bit and slightly off to the left so it's not perfectly centered. Press Command J to duplicate that layer again, Command left to move it down one spot, and now hold the Shift key and tap it down and to the right a little bit. Press T to get your type tool, click inside, and change this to read themed. Okay, so it's going to say join us for a monster themed, and we're going to add one more line of text. So to do that, I'll first grab my join us for a type layer, press Command J to duplicate that, and now I'm going to move this down below the other text layers. So press Command in the left bracket about 3 times, press V to get your move tool, and then hold Shift and the down key to just move this down into place. Grab the type tool and once again, click inside to highlight the text and change it to read celebration with an exclamation point afterwards, just to make it even more exciting. Okay, and now I'm just going to tap that over here into place, grab all of my text layers and maybe just move them up a little bit so there's a little bit of room. And now hold the Command key and also click on the comic bubble layer so that you've got all these layers selected. Press Command G to put them into a group folder. Double click the group 1 text and just rename this group folder Comic Bubble. And there you have it, guys. We have now finished our zombie party invitation design in Photoshop. It looks really cool. The colors are very nice with the purples, the reds, and the off-whites. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this tutorial, and it's just giving you guys a small taste of, one of the many things that you'll be able to create using this awesome, hugely versatile vector bundle. So be sure to check out the full bundle. It's a tremendous value, and it'll help you guys step up your design game very easily, so you'll have thousands of high-quality vectors to use in any of your projects. Once again, this is Eric Vasquez here for Design Cuts. Thank you guys again for watching, and we'll see you next time.